I tried to make a kind of a compromise. My slides I prepared in German because I'm sure there are people who are fluent in German, but I decided to speak in English. Конечно же, я говорю тоже по-русски, но это уже, скажем, потом. Может, я все-таки сделаю отдельную сессию для тех, кто интересуется именно деталями программ Фонда Александра фон Гумбольдта. So, first of all, a very warm welcome to everybody participating in this conference, and first of all, many thanks to Alexandra Antonovsky, who took the initiative to organize this conference. So what does it mean, a Humboldt-Kolleg conference? This is a series of conferences taking place every year all over the world. There are roughly 50 to 60 conferences organized. And here in the country, it's going to be this year already the third one. These are conferences that are sponsored by the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation, but not organized by it. They are organized on the initiative of alumni, of Humboldtians. This is how we call the alumni of the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation, of the various sponsorship programs of the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation. And 15 years ago, maybe, and if I'm right, more or less heard, or 10 years ago, Alexander used to be a fellow of the so-called German Chancellor Fellowship Program of the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation. So, the Russian Humboldtians have been very active in celebrating the 250th anniversary of Alexander von Humboldt here in the country. And they are very right in doing so. Alexander von Humboldt, of course, is famous by his travel to Latin America that took place from 1799 to 1804. But he's equally known for his travel to Russia in 1829, when he was 60 years old. And we should imagine he did not use trains, he did not use airplanes, so it was all on coaches at the time, at the age of 60. So it takes me a lot already to go by plane to Russia, you know, it takes me one day, but he was on travel roughly half a year, arriving in St. Petersburg, and of course welcome here in the university as well. He became an honorary professor of the Moscow University, and I'm really happy to report that I was invited to participate in this Humboldt Celebrating Conference organized by the Russian Geographical Society, initiated by the first vice president of this society, and it took place in the very building where Alexander von Humboldt himself put his steps in. So, and it was very nicely later on described in the memoirs of Alexander Herzen. So, the first Humboldt-related event this year took place in St. Petersburg, where he first arrived when he came to the Russian Imperia at the time. And he was interested in magnetism observations, and he was supporting buying equipment for what we know now as a Pulkovo observatory. So he did participate directly in writing to Congrès, the then Minister of Finances, to arrange for enough money to buy that equipment. So it was Alexander von Humboldt who already at this time was the best promoter of science observations, first of all. And you remember maybe the novel written by Daniel Kehlmann, Measuring the World, Измеряя мир, переводе на русский. Measuring the World. This was what Alexander von Humboldt did all the time. So we started celebrating Alexander von Humboldt with the alumni in St. Petersburg within the framework of the so-called German Week, organized by the General Consulate of the Federal Republic of Germany in St. Petersburg, followed by another Humboldt-Kolleg on the topic of smart cities in Samara, in one of the important regions of Russia, and another colleague that took place already in October this year here in Moscow, and which was a more interdisciplinary colleague conference with a lot of alumni and other scientists and scholars participating. And finally, I'm so happy that Alexander Antonovsky was able to design a conference already more closely related to the philosophical aspects of Alexander von Humboldt's travel, and just now in this greeting speech of the director of the Institute of Philosophy of the Academy of Sciences, the important role of the brother of Alexander von Humboldt, Wilhelm von Humboldt, was mentioned. Transcending boundaries with Humboldt. Transcending boundaries, this is a topic of what I would like to present you when I talk about Alexander von Humboldt. He was a person who was, during his whole life, transcending boundaries, geographical, political, and first of all, of course, scientific boundaries. Alexander von Humboldt was a researcher who did his observations in a wider range of scientific disciplines like botany, geology, mineralogy, and so on. Today, when celebrating his 250th birthday, we even started calling him the father of ecology. Who was speaking about ecology at the time? And one can really ask the question, are we overdoing now? I don't think so. There was Andrea Wolf writing 1.5 years ago the book on Alexander von Humboldt, The Invention of Nature. So we are also inventing Alexander von Humboldt again and again. So we, of course, creating our own vision of Alexander von Humboldt, and following a book on on the topic of meta-biography, we can clearly say, yes, we do create our own vision and picture of Alexander von Humboldt. Oliver Lubrich, a rather famous Humboldt researcher nowadays, he describes Alexander von Humboldt as a climate researcher. Yes, if you look at him, at his time it was not mentioned so dominantly. But of course, he can be called one of the first critical climate researchers, bringing everything what is happening in the world into interconnection. So Alexander von Humboldt did measure, and I quote one of the Humboldt biographers, Andreas Baum, from the United States of America, who said about Alexander von Humboldt, who was very happy to do every time something anew, and as he said, 3 things at once. So this is something I guess we are confronted with nowadays as well. He, as is reported, slept just 4 hours a day, or a night. So he needed 4 hours. I think 6 hours would, for many of us, maybe not enough. Humboldt transcending boundaries. Humboldt transcending boundaries. This is something the federal president of the Federal Republic of Germany, Steinmeier, was mentioning when he received 1,000 Humboldtians from all over the world in the premises of the park of Bellevue Castle, where he resides. Alles ist Wechselwirkung. Everything is interconnected. This has been the key message of Alexander von Humboldt, describing the world as a cosmos. Looking at the web of life, bringing it to vision. Everything is interconnected. This is a quote the federal president made 5 times in a speech of 10 minutes only. And this speaks about, of course, a personal approach of the federal president, but I think this is, of course, a quote we are going to refer to during these 3-day conferences quite a number of times. I'm very much sure about this. Alexander von Humboldt was transcending disciplines. I just a few weeks ago read a larger article in Westnik Europe that was published by Sakalinski in 1870. And he, I quote him more or less, said there that Humboldt abolished all fields of natural science as a science and brought them back to the role of those who would serve just one aim, researching nature. Researching nature. Was he a universal genius, Alexander von Humboldt? Was he, as it is said, or was said here in Russia, was he the Aristoteles of the 19th century? I don't know. We maybe can find an answer during our discussions here during those, those days. But as I already said, he found out about the web of life. So Humboldt invents the nature anew. But there was something Andrea Wolf, I already quoted, said as well about him. And when you read the writings of Alexander von Humboldt, you can really feel it. It's about science and emotion. So Alexander von Humboldt, this is another point I would like to make, brought emotion into science. He was the best communicator of himself, of what he was doing. So he was very popular. Why he was very popular? Did he write very popular books? He wrote very important books that became popular because people, average people, as he said, unscientific people, started reading them. They started attending lectures, public lectures given by Alexander von Humboldt. So he was what we would call a popularizator of science at his time. And he, especially in letters you can read about this, asked the person publishing his books, you should also bring some more exotic animals there, so that so-called unscientific people would also become interested in. He sold 40,000 copies of his books, which was an amazingly high number at the time. What I also wanted to mention is the question about freedom of research. Alexander von Humboldt was free to do his research. Why? First of all, his mother died. He became a wealthy person. We would have called him a millionaire at the time. So he quit the service as a mining engineer in Goldkrona and started doing what he always wanted to do, to go and travel, to transcend boundaries, to leave Germany and to discover the new world. So he did. So what you need for science is freedom. Is freedom to do, in the sense of having the money. And of course you need to be free to determine your topics of research. And this is something the Alexander von Humboldt offers. By offering research fellowships and research awards to scientists and scholars from all over the world, we offer the time to do research you would like to do, free of any bureaucratic service you need, or administrative service, let it say, with any negative connotation. Yeah? Service for your university or research institute. So Alexander von Humboldt, as it is said, spent 1/3 of his fortune to finance his travel to Latin America. Another third of what he owned he spent to publish, because at the time the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation didn't exist. So there was no printing allowance he could have applied for. So the second third of his fortune he spent to publish. He was a child, we can really say, serving the king all the time, but he was a child of the French Revolution. She was supporting the idea of equal rights and freedom of all the people, and he condemned slavery. This was very important. And you can ask, hey, how did the Spanish king decide to give him the allowance to visit his colonies and look at the slavery going on everywhere? How could he do this? Alexander von Humboldt was a genius in any regard. He was also a perfect person in making people convinced about what he is offering, the project he is doing, that those projects would be of use for them. And so the Spanish crown saw, first of all, possible results in inventing the country, finding out about the richness of what could be used by the colonial state. And in the first, during the first years, he did not speak in public about slavery. He did this write in letters to his brothers, to other people. So, but later on, when he published his book, there was a whole, on Cuba, for instance, there was a whole chapter about slavery, which was, by the way, published in the United States without this chapter condemning slavery, which made Alexander von Humboldt rather furious, and he wrote to the publisher. So this is no more true today. So celebrating Alexander von Humboldt's birthday this year comes in coincidence with celebrating 70 years of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Germany. And we are pleased to say, and we are thankful to the fathers of the Constitution who stated, the art and science, research and teaching are free. And this is an important framework for doing research and science in Germany. Free of political influence, of course. Everything needs resources. And if you talk to the people, to the researchers, not all the researchers are happy with the research money they are given to. But in general, research, science, teaching, and the arts are free. And this freedom we give, and this was also quoted by the German Chancellor, who took the invitation of the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation to speak at the annual meeting of the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation this summer in Berlin. And I must say, she being a scientist herself, or having been a scientist herself, she ensures that science and research in the country is supported on a rather high level. So the freedom I was talking about is given to those Humboldt Fellows, Humboldt Research Award winners who come to Germany. And this is the general attitude of any of the programs of the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation, to offer some time to do research in Germany. In a rather flexible way, alumni being here can report about their own experiences. And those Humboldtians, in a way, do the same, following the footsteps of Alexander von Humboldt, transcending boundaries. You need to move yourself. Yeah? You need to move yourself into a foreign country. You are bringing maybe your family with you. So you are transcending geographical, sometimes political, cultural boundaries. And this is something, of course, one needs to think about. And the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation, especially the department I'm the director of, sponsorship and network, is also meant to support this kind of change, to advise and consult Humboldtians. The Alexander von Humboldt Foundation, and let me now give you a few details about the programs, just general positions, is a foundation that has just one criterion for sponsoring, which means the scientific excellence. We do not look at any other factors. There are no quotas, neither for countries nor for disciplines. We support persons and not projects by choosing a person to be awarded a fellowship or an award. Of course, we do support a research idea that was brought forward, and everybody is free to choose a place to do research and a host to do research in Germany. So it's about scientific excellence, and over the years we have established a so-called Humboldt network of more than now already 30,000 persons being member of this. The sponsorship is an individual one, so it's about the selection of individual scientists and scholars. We offer a lot of additional services to support scientists and scholars coming with families, spouses and children. We offer German language courses. The key program of the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation and the Humboldt Research Fellowship Program, every year we offer roughly 550, 600 fellowships. It's a worldwide competition, and I show in a minute some statistics about applications we receive from the Russian Federation, or from scientists and scholars based in Russia. The success rate is roughly 25–30%, so it's not a lottery, it's not a game, so you have a serious chance to be successful in this competition. If you look at this chart, you can see where those scientists and scholars sponsored came from in the research fellowship programs. Over the last 5 years, a little bit more than 3,000 scientists and scholars were sponsored. So Europe comes with a major share of 35%. However, I must say I started my affiliation with the Humboldt Foundation in the beginning of the 90s. This share was close to 50%. So in a certain way, this chart, this slide, reflects the changing geography of science. So, and as you can see, it's first of all because the increasing share of science scholars coming from Asia. And what does it mean coming from Asia? Coming from the People's Republic of China. So, but this is statistics we of course look at. This is not given in our selection. As I said, there are no quota neither for countries nor for disciplines, but we of course look at who applies to the foundation, where the applications come from, and who is successful. And the same is true for the various disciplines. And as you can see here, the major share comes with the natural sciences of close to 40 and the life sciences. But with an increasing share now, 1 out of 4 scientists and scholars sponsored by the foundation are humanities scholars already. So this is what I said about the Humboldt network, almost 30,000 with a major share still in Europe, reflecting here more the history of sponsorship by the Humboldt Foundation since 1953. The first Humboldt Foundation was established the year after Alexander von Humboldt passed away in 1860. The Humboldt Foundation as it exists now, which has been established by the Foreign Office representing the German federal government in 1953, is doing these kind of programs. And important enough is the alumni sponsorship. So the Humboldt Foundation does not offer just a one-time grant, but offers a grant with an invitation to become and stay a member of the network. And this Humboldt-Kolleg is a kind of documenting this sponsorship philosophy. So, einmal Humboldtianer, immer Humboldtianer. Once a Humboldtian, always a Humboldtian. So, members of the Humboldt Foundation network can again and again turn to the foundation, can apply for renewed research days in Germany or for organizing this kind of conferences. There is another program which is relevant for Russian Federation. It's the German Chancellor Fellowship program, which does not look so much to scientists and academic scholars, but to people we consider to be coming leaders, young leaders, and every year also 10 fellowships are given to applicants here from the Russian Federation. As I already said, I'm ready to offer a special session on details of the programs, and I could speak even Russian in this round maybe. And here, these are statistics. It's quite okay. I mean, if you look at the number of applications received over the last 5 years and the fellowships given, I told you 1/3 of those who apply are successful. If you look at 2014 or 15, you would not say that 1/3 of those who applied made it. So we could say, yeah, maybe the average qualification of those, at least who applied, was less good than compared to peers coming from other countries of the world. This has been much different in the 90s or roughly 2000. So we don't know whether this reflects the level of academic qualification nowadays, but as we are supporting this colleague, we are working on this, we would really appreciate more qualified applications. And last but not least, what would Alexander von Humboldt say today? Or we should better say, what would he Twitter? I'm very much sure he would be a critical contemporary. He would tell us about the deficits of what we are doing. Yeah? And he would be at the forefront of climate research. Yeah? But maybe sometimes with better arguments than now. And not politicizing, but telling the true scientific story. Yeah? So it is not too late. The anniversary year is still going on. And we have arranged for a website, Humboldt Today, which also invites you to transfer your message. What does Humboldt mean for me today? So you can upload your message and become, in this regard, a member of the worldwide network of people who relate themselves one or the other way to Alexander von Humboldt. I would like to thank you very much for your attention, and I wish, of course, the conference any success. I will be available over the until Saturday, all the 3 days, so please approach me. We can talk about what you're interested in. Many thanks.